Zoom command prompt, but that's relatively nice. If you kill the server and then start it up again. So basically, I did Control-C to kill the server, and I ran node app.js again to restart the server. Is everyone at the same point? Getting a thumbs up when you are. Okay, a lot of thumbs up. Let's try going to this URL again. Cool, it works. So what this does is it shows that when you make changes to something that your server is running, you need to restart your server in order for those changes to reflect on your own website. And the reason for that is because basically all that is happening is your computer is running a program in the background, and even though you made changes to the code editor on your page, that never gets reflected in the program in the background until you actually forcefully make it rerun a new program. Now, Monday introduced a tool to you guys yesterday, and it's called NodeMon. Now, the NodeMon, the way it works, is basically whenever you make a change to your website, it will automatically kill your server and start it running again. I hold off on using NodeMon for now. I will give you guys a little guide later on how to get NodeMon working for people who have it broken, because I don't want to confuse all of you guys on Windows and trying to get it to work for you guys. But basically, if you guys want to do a little bit of research on yourself, you use a tool called cmd.exe. On Windows, it's called command prompt. Basically, it's the window I'm using on my computer, actually. It's this ugly black box over here. It's much prettier on Macs and Linuxes. Basically, this thing won't crash your server if you use NodeMon. It will correctly restart your server. So if you're on Windows and you want to use NodeMon, feel free to use it over here. One other thing, and I guess I'll teach this now. For NodeMon, I just can walk it through with you guys. Say you want to run your server with NodeMon, so it will automatically restart, and it's great. If you type NodeMon, or NodeDaemon, it's a play on words, and you type the same file as before, so app.js. Okay, so I have it working on my computer. Who here gets an error on their computer if they do this code? Most people should get this error. Raise your hand if you did. Hi. Okay, a solid amount of people. Who has it working on their computer? Raise your hand. Okay, so what this does is NodeMon is a tool that your computer will use so let's just first show off what it can do. So this says NodeMon is running, and if people want to, I'll write it down on the board when I go to another screen. So NodeMon source app.js. So on this screen over here, this is our server. And the reason, let's show off what it can do. Let's make another route. So let's copy test, make it /Aaron, and let's send over hello Aaron. Now, as you can see, this should restart our server, and if it doesn't, we have problems. We have problems. Why does this not successfully restart the server? So, for some of you guys who are running NodeMon on your own computer that have it working, who here has it work for them? Can you raise your hand? Okay, so not many people have this working. I think in order to not confuse you guys, I'm not going to worry about NodeMon right now. Sometimes it doesn't work fully correctly. Again, don't let this confuse you. It's just a way of making your life easier, but it's not related to a server at all. It's just a way of running it. Whenever you could use NodeMon, you could use Node itself. But the difference is whenever you make a change, you just have to restart your server. So let's ignore nodemon. Oh, and then it says restarting due to changes twice. And server running. Alright, I'm not sure what happened with it. It was a little buggy. But let's not worry about it for now. If anyone wants help, I'm happy to help them after class. So, basically, we kind of understand at a rough level what this application is doing at a bare minimum. It's defining some GET requests and what happens. So now I'm going to go to the full product that Monday had at the end and try to explain what happened. It's going to get way more complicated, but if you break it down in pieces, it should be alright. And it's basically the same thing. Now, does anyone have any questions before I move on, or is everyone all good? Don't be afraid to, don't be shy. Yep.
Sorry, but when you do terminal things, can you make the terminal?
Sure. I'm not sure how you do that on command prompt. Let me figure it out. Do
Control plus.
Control plus is not doing anything on Windows. In fact, I think I'm going to move to git bash, and I think you can do it there. Let's see. There we go. Awesome. Alright, we're at our old starting point. Great. So now let's make sure that we make this full screen. Let's sync up to where Monday was. So this ending point for Monday's lecture is going to be the starting point for today's lecture. So if everyone could just clone the workshop for today, it's at go.6148.io/workshop3. So I'll go right here. So this is the workshop. Clone it. Leave it up for a second. Over here. And it's Git. Make sure you're in your home directory, not within another Git repository, and you want to clone it. I can't do it because I already have it on my computer. Alright. So I don't have too much time. I have less than 10 minutes, so I'm going to do a quick rundown of what's going on. But again, if you guys are confused by exactly what's going on, you don't be too afraid. This is meant to be a lot of foreign code that is simply configuring your server, and you don't really need to understand all of it to understand how to use it. So is everyone at this point? Can you just raise your hand when you are? Alright, everyone is there. They're almost everyone. I can move on now. So, again, let's close this guy, and let us open up in Visual Studio Code on my computer. If you guys don't have Visual Studio Code, you might have to manually open it in Sublime, but it's just a different text editor. So I'll wait for a second for you guys to be there, and then I'm just going to walk you guys through shortly what this application does. You can raise your hands when you're at app.js. Okay, so just like earlier, guys, this app.js is the same starting point for your server, just like all the previous app.js's were. But as you can see, now there's a lot of files. So it isn't clear where the starting point is. So the starting point is always defined in package.json, which I mentioned earlier. And right here in your scripts, it tells you how to begin it. Again, it uses nodemon, so if it's not working on your computer, feel free to even change this to node source app.js. But nodemon should work on your own computers. Okay? Let's ignore this. So now we're here at the top of app.js. I'm going to do a quick rundown of what it does, and then we'll move on to the databases workshop. So, what exactly is this app.js doing? So require, if you remember, is an import. So it's now using 3 packages. HTTP, body parser, and express. The only, yep.
Do we have to reinstall all those packages again?
Yep, so this is a new repository right now, so you'll definitely need to do an npm install again to get it to work.
Cool.
Generally, if you're working with friends on a project, if anyone adds a dependency and then pushes changes to your project and you pull that project and they use that dependency somewhere, your project's going to crash because it doesn't have those files.
Okay.
If someone pushes changes and doesn't update their package.json and you pull, it's going to throw an error, but if you npm install, it's not going to fix it. So you have to like manually install the dependency. Okay. So here are some dependencies that we have, and it's pulling these from other places. This is something called a local dependency. I'm going to get back to what this is in a little bit, so just hold off on this guy until the end. It's doing something really nice by segmenting our code into different chunks. But I'm going to explain it in a little bit.
But nothing is there.
This line over here is the exact same as we had before. It sets up our server. This is using body parser, and to be quite honest, I don't really know what it's doing, but I know that you need it. If you want a guess from me as to what it's doing, I didn't do thorough research, but what I'm assuming is if you make a post request to the server, it's telling you to treat the data you send to it like JSON. And that's what this guy over here is doing. I might be wrong. Slava, if he's here, or somebody like that, correct me, but I haven't seen him. So let's just move on and let's assume it's what I said. But again, you don't really need this for your own, you don't need to understand it too thoroughly, you just need it in your own project. Just configurations. Basically, this is related to the views thing I mentioned before. I'll tell you about it at the end. So ignore line 19 for now. Over here is something called express.static. Every time you connect to a server, the server has to decide what files to show to you. When you do a GET request for some HTML files, it can send them to you, but also it's going to make some files always public to you. And things that you always want public are things like the CSS, the JavaScript that you use in the front, the client side. All of those things we want to always be public, so we just specify that here. Exactly the syntax of why it's /static and everything, I wouldn't worry about it too much, but that's just what it's doing. Yep?
What does it mean for a directory to be public?
Basically, if you go on the Chrome inspector when you connect to the server, you'll be able to look through the inspector and look through like, the inspector will be like, will show you what files it can access in like, I think it's under sources, and all the files in public should be there. There's basically, if you guys go to a URL that doesn't exist, remember how you saw the like cannot get /test from before? Well, that's a really shitty error message. So to make that better, you have something over here. So now if I go to that get test again, it'll tell me not found instead of that bad error message. In your own servers, you should make it something that's even better. So make it like, sorry, this is not, or like, even like Google sometimes has 404s and it has like a really cute page that it renders. So try doing something like that in your own program. Route error handler is just something more specific if your server breaks down somewhere. Don't really have to worry about what it's doing exactly, you just need it in your own server. I'm going to be repeating this a bunch, unfortunately, but it's just what you need to do to set up your own server. And down here is the exact same that we had before, which is setting our server ready to listen at a specific port. Okay, great. So basically I've gone over app.js. It's only 40 lines, not too bad. Let's look at, so basically let's just see what this, we added a new folder called routes, and we added something called views.js. So let's just look at that briefly, and then we'll tie it back to app.js. So, is everyone on views? Give me a thumbs up when you are. Okay. So views uses something called express.router. You guys, again, don't really have to worry about what this is specifically doing, but if you can see over here, this looks really similar to what we had before. That if you do a GET request to /, it's now going to, instead of just sending you some text, it's going to send you a file. Same thing over here. If you go to /use/profile at the end, it's going to send you a different file. That's all Views is doing. It's using some Express fancy features so that you can move this to its own file over here and then link it to app.js. So remember before it was app.get and app.get over here? Now you're using router.get. And it's just a way of Express being able to compartmentalize your program into different chunks. Does this make sense to everyone to a rough degree about what this is doing? Sure. So, as your server gets more and more complicated, you're going to want to break it up into different bits. So maybe a place where you send files to the user, you want to move it to its own JavaScript file. But now we need to connect that up to our main file that's running everything, which is app.js. So Express has some features built into it to allow you to connect it to app.js. Those features are specifically called express.router and module.exports. You don't exactly have to worry about what it's doing in these core features, but know that you need them to hook it up back to your app.js. What's happening over here is exactly what was happening in Workshop 2 that Monday did. Was basically, if you make a GET request to your root directory, it's going to send you a file for index.html, which is all the feeds. So basically, this is setting up the landing page. If you go to localhost 3000, you should be able to see all the feed again that we had before. Same thing if you go to /use/profile at the end, it should send you a different file for your profile. Does that make more sense? Exactly how it's doing this, don't worry about it. Just know that in your own server, if you're going to make some route, this is the step that you would take. Better? Okay. A way that you connect this back to app.js is something called module.exports. Don't worry exactly again what it does, but it basically allows you to, over here, if you type require and where it is on your computer, then it knows what to grab. Basically what it's doing is it's setting this views variable right here to this router variable right here. That's all it's doing. So it's basically creating this router over here, setting some parameters on the router, and then making that router variable public for your, like not necessarily public, but open for your app.js to grab onto it. So over here, when your node sees require routes views, it's going to go here, run all this code, and grab the router. Does that kind of make sense to people? Can I get like a thumbs up if the process makes sense? Not how it works, but the process. Okay.
What is
App.use, it's a lot of Express native functions that is configuring your server. You don't really have to worry about what it's doing, it's just Express needs it to set up configurations. Any other questions? Alright, great. I have to wrap it up soon because we have a lot of things we have to cover today, but I hope this gives you guys a better idea and make you more comfortable with what a server is doing. It's really not that complicated. The only crappy part about it is you have to do a lot of configurations to it to make it make sense. And the core thing that I think I want to tell you guys is if you don't understand what something does, play with it, delete it, change what it returns. It will help you understand it a lot better. And also, you don't have to understand something fully to be able to use it. So that wraps up the recap for today, guys. Robert's going to give you guys an introduction to what a database is right now. And then after lunch, he's going to do his workshop for how to hook up the database. And then at 2 p.m. today, we'll have a guest lecture from Palantir, who's going to teach you about UI and UX, which is awesome. She's really nice.
Yo, guys.